Hi there, and welcome to my beginner's guide for Guild of Dungeoneering. I'm Icon, and this video will guide you through the basic gameplay loop. I'm going to explain how the mechanics of this one work, and I'm going to give you a wrap-up of how to be successful in this game and have fun with it. So this is going to be ideal whether you want to know if this game is to your liking, or if you are new here and you're needing some pointers. So before we get started though, let me lose 2 words about this game as it is now. This guide is made with the Ultimate Edition, which is basically a souped and beefed up version of the game, including a lot of new content, reworks on the classes, and lots of nitty-gritty things that make this game pretty interesting, even if it's already, while I'm recording this, a couple of years old. So big thanks to the developers who brought me in and give me the chance to test all that. Alright, that's now said and done. Let's get started. So we see here the dungeon that we can access. I'm going to dive deeper into that later. So every dungeon we do consists out of several quests. Once you have done all the quests, you're done with the dungeon. As you see here, I have a couple of successful ones. Before we lose too many words about that, let's get into the dungeon and, well, let's pick the Chump. That's one of the easiest classes to play with. So, entering the dungeon, and let's go. So every dungeon brings you to a certain challenge. You have a certain quest to do. In this scenario, we need to kill a skeleton. And there's also a couple of extra things we can do here. The game works like that. Our adventurer here will try to explore the dungeon and do accordingly to the quest he has. We got these tiles down here, and we can just put them on the floorboard. And as you can see here, the blue footsteps already show you where your character will move. So placing down tiles will influence the movement of your character. So you can see here he's moving like that, and you can play up to 3 cards per turn. The goal here is pretty simple. You need to do whatever the quest tells you. So for example here, we need to kill the skeleton. Getting close to the skeleton means we'll need to put down field tiles accordingly here. So that's easy enough. So you can see that and that. So my character switched over to the newest tile. That's because adventurers are per se curious. They'll always look for the newest thing. But you can also funnel them into the direction of enemies or treasures. Sometimes you also get treasure cards you can place down. Here we only got an enemy card, which is pretty good. You see here the skills and such of your enemy, HP and whatnot. We're going to place them down here. Enemies are very, very important because without enemies you can't get any loot and you can't get any XP. So your character will level up whenever he kills an enemy which is in either the same or a higher level of his. And now let's get into combat, shall we? So combat is really cool and easily done. Over here are the HP and the actions of our enemy, and over here is our character. We see here which traits everybody has, so traits will influence your character, and here's the enemy's traits. Simply said, this is what your enemy is trying to do in terms of damage to you, and this is the block that's happening in this turn. So this attack here is the card that the enemy is playing there, and you see what's happening here. 2 attacks and 1 shield, 2 attacks and 2 shield, and an extra shield comes via the trait. So here's my own hand. I can now either attack myself or use that Mind Strike. As you can see here, the Mind Strike has a different icon. That's because the game divides between physical and magical damage. So we're going to use the Mind Strike. Magical damage is depicted down here. And as we can see here, we're taking 2 damage, but we're overriding the block because the block was only a physical block. So we're safe now. Next attack from the enemy is just stupidity, so we're going to do that slice, hurt that thug while we can, and there we go. Here's the next action from the enemy, head blow. If it succeeds, if it successfully deals damage, my opponent will discard a card. The opponent will discard a card. But since I got an action which will deal 2 damage to that guy, we're good. So let's do this. And that's how combat works in its basics. So after every fight, you'll get to choose some loot. Here's where things get interesting. So every item of loot comes with its own kind of traits, and that's how this game gives you new skills. So the cards I had there were mainly from my character, but you can gain a lot of other cards according to these items. So as you can see here, the dessert spoon gives you Swift +1 and Holy +1. That means you gain access to the skills that are linked to Swift 1 and Holy 1, which is seen up there. 1 Shift, you see you deal 1 physical damage. Quick means you act before the enemy and you draw a card afterwards. And Holy 1 is a block skill, which will heal you per blocked point of damage. These cards are easily understandable. What's not that easy to understand was for me how these traits work. So the Troll Bone here gives you 1 rank of Stupidity, 2 ranks of Crush, 1 rank of Growth. Here it is easily perceivable. So Stupidity gives you 1 of these cards that have exactly no effect. That's the first one. Crush 1 is the Bash skill. Crush 2 is the Slam skill. And Growth 1 is the Rekindle skill. So basically now when you would gain a new item that will give you more Crush, you would unlock Crush 3 and so on and so forth. Keep in mind, the higher the number, the more BAM the card has. And none of these cards costs anything. There are no resources necessary to play your cards usually. So it's very, very desirable to rack up traits accordingly. So since we haven't had anything for blocks yet, we're going to take the dessert spoon so I can show you how the blocking here still works. So after leveling up, I gained a new heart. By the way, the damage persists not between battles, so you can easily freely use your HP in between battles. It won't hurt you. So the next room here, as you see, has this red mark there. That's because there's a fountain. Fountain of Blindness. The monsters in this room gain Concealed for the next fight. And we also could take this way, where our hero gains a debuff trait called Decay. We have to take one of these paths. We can't change that. Keep in mind that on these tiles here that you can place down, there's sometimes also these runes. This is called the favor system. Favor is easily explained. If I get into a room that has favor in it, I don't automatically get anything. I need to win a battle on this tile to gain favor points. And every favor point can be used for certain effects. So 1 favor point for a treasure card, 2 favor points for burning a card, which means you can remove 1 of your basic cards, which is pretty good because these are most of the time your weakest cards. And also 3 favors for discarding your hands and drawing 7 cards. Pretty neat things, but keep in mind you have to win a battle in there. Sometimes you gain also floor tiles with a fountain. Usually there's one downside with them. You don't know whether it's going to be a positive or a negative fountain, because these fountains can also come in a blue color, which will be beneficial then. So Conceal, as you see here, means that the monster's battle cards are obscured. And Decay means taking 2 or more damage in 1 turn causes me to take 1 point of extra damage. I somehow prefer that one over the other, so we're going to place down an enemy in there. And you see, when I place down the enemy, the walking path of my Dungeoneer changes. So we could play 1 more card, and sometimes you want, sometimes you don't. It's up to you. So up here you see, by the way, the traits your enemy has. Armed 3, Irritable 1, Stupidity 2. That's the same kind of system that your own character uses. So you'll have cards of the Armed school up to rank 3 and so on and so forth. You can use this as a readout about how dangerous your enemy is going to possibly be. The Mimic, for example, has all his attacks up to level 3. Could be bad, but you'll have to learn out of that on your own. So, heroes in the Gnoll. Gnoll has the Fury trait. Physical attacks deal more damage if he's on half health or less, which is kind of annoying, but we gotta do. So, enemy goes with Anger, taking some damage while attacking me. So, I'll counter that with a Slice. So, I'll take damage, he'll take damage. Boom. No problem. So, here goes a way bigger problem, though. This is a big attack. And blocking, yeah, I could now block, and I guess I will also, but here you go. I just wanted to show it once how it actually works. Alright, for some reason I don't have the decay trait. That's odd. That shouldn't work like that. Okay, so the Gnoll now is now below 50% of his HP, so he's dealing more damage. Let's cower one more time. And okay, I'm going to lose here. You see, double KO does not go, but that's okay. I wanted to lose at this point to some degree because I wanted to explain how all this works in this regard. It's not unusual for your people to die.
Very scared. Our heroes fell in battle.
You always get a nice song as well. That's why I felt silent for a moment. So your people dying is nothing unusual. I kind of like expected that when I selected jump there. So new characters can be found in the guild, which is going to be the next part of that. So you see here a new Dungeoneer has arrived, a fresh bruiser. That was happening because last time I lost a bruiser and we got a new jump as well automatically. So this is your guild. I'm going to explain how replenishing characters work in a minute. So your guild can be expanded with new rooms, or you can hire new Dungeoneers. So I already built the hidden den and the training yard, unlocking the bruiser and the cat burglar. And you can unlock blessings and different loot items. And then you just place them down here according like that. Here's your trophy room, where you gain trophies according to the adventures you've already completed. And the regain of characters works quite simple. As long as you have a room unlocked for a certain class, for example, here the Bruiser. If I go into a dungeon with a Bruiser, I'll lose him, then I'll wait another dungeon and I'll get a new one. So basically they go on cooldown. There's one thing though, whenever your Dungeoneers successfully finish a dungeon, they'll gain new traits. As you see here, this one here has 4 dungeon runs already completed, and they'll gain more and more beneficial traits, making them more and more powerful. But don't worry if people of yours die. This game is quite heavily influenced by RNG, and therefore you can't make sure that you'll win every fight. Losing your Dungeoneers from time to time is part of the intended game experience, and it's really not that bothersome. They come, they go, they level up quite quickly, and the extra things aren't that massively powerful. The basic gameplay is therefore quite simply explained. You gain loot while you're exploring these dungeons. You invest that gold for buying new rooms, hiring new Dungeoneers, getting new blessings. These blessings give you the opportunity to give your character different bonuses to start with. For example, here we have the Trickster's Favor, giving you extra loot choices for the first fights. Or here, Hug in a Bottle gives you an extra HP for the first 2 fights, and so on and so forth. There's a lot of things going deeper into the roguelite character of this one. And last but not least, you can also unlock new loot items. The tiers of upgrades, as you can see here, cost more and more gold, and that's your progression system. It's pretty cool in that regard because you will always find new things to tinker around with, and there's always new classes to play around with. And these Dungeoneers, they are pretty cool in that regard. Every class comes with its own set of base cards and its own base trait. For example, the Bruiser will deal damage to the enemy whenever he fully blocks an attack. That's a really neat one. The Chump here has no trait because the Chump is basically the basic class, which was also a reason why I used the Chump for the basic tutorial. And this is giving you a lot of variety. As you can see here, there's a dozen different classes to unlock. And with the Ultimate Edition, these classes all got reworked and souped up. And the developers really did take a lot of effort to make them feel a lot more balanced and well-rounded than they did before the Ultimate Edition. It's really worth checking out. So what's behind all this? You'll be playing this game until you have unlocked the world here. So there's definitely a end in sight, but you'll be rewarded with pretty cool and interesting fights. I got to say, these dungeons are really well and interestingly made. So there are really different scenarios. Every dungeon is handmade. There's no really procedurally generated content in this one. So this brings it to one downside: you're done at some point with that game, which is kind of tragic, but that's not the worst of things. I really think that Guild of Dungeoneers is awesome when you like turn-based combat, but you're after some relaxing, fun experience, because there's a lot of giggles in this one. This game is very humorous. Listening to the bard's music is extremely fun, and yeah, there's really not much more to explain about that game. This is really easy to pick up in its own regard, but there are a lot of intricacies to master, especially when you want to max out certain skills and build certain builds and so on and so forth. Yeah, so, well, that's pretty much all that I can say about how to play this game. The rest is more than easy to understand. Tooltips help you wherever you go, and most of these mechanics are pretty easy to pick up, like I said. This is maybe one of the most enjoyable parts about this game, that learning it is so easy. Oh, it's a yellow one, not a blue one. I lied to you. I'm sorry, guys. So, yeah. That's that. Feel free to ask any questions. If there are any new questions around, just drop them into the comment box below. Leave a thumbs up on that video if you enjoyed, and of course, consider subscribing. I do daily videos. You just need to turn on the notification bell so you'll stay informed. Also, check out the description box down there. There's my Twitch channel, where I do daily streams, and also my Discord community, where you find like-minded gamers, including myself. And also, I'd be deeply delighted if you'd check out the links for direct support of my video channel. It would be really nice if you did, but I sure don't mind if you don't, because watching this video to this point and even listening to this part means a terrible lot to me. Have a nice day, and enjoy gaming. Bye-bye.